This is Strategist episode 1889. My name is Zain Velji. With me, as always, Stephen Carter, Shannon, Phillips. Hello, friends.
Wow, we're getting into like years that I recognize. 1889. That's pretty great stuff. I'm pretty excited.
Carter, these are large numbers.
I was born in 1889. This is
true.
This is a great time for me. I'm living my best life.
Are you living your best life?
Oh,
I mean, this is not the episode to ask you if you're living your best life.
Living my best life, baby. We're going to do the accountability episodes, aren't we? We're going to do them live. We're going to do live shows. Is that what we decided?
Are we actually committing to this on a podcast?
Yeah.
We have not had a meeting about this.
That means nothing.
No,
I guess we can have the meeting right now.
Yeah, let's have the meeting. Should we do this live?
I think we should do it live.
The Stephen Carter accountability episode. Maybe we'll bring a guest or two in.
I've been approached by a couple of potential guests already.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Do you think any of your candidates are free? I feel like a lot of them might be.
My candidates are super busy. They're unable to make it.
Okay.
Yeah, but been approached by someone who wants to be a special guest already. That's fairly high profile. I'm pretty excited by it. So it's not Corey. So
Corey's not high profile enough.
Well, I mean, parliamentary secretary for forestry or something, or natural resources. I don't remember. I wasn't paying attention.
Shannon, do you want to do this live?
Oh, sure. I'll do it. I mean, availability is always an issue. So, I mean, if it's Christmas Eve, I'm probably available. But other than that, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Shannon's not
we
going
have
to
to
be
do
there,
it fairly soon.
What I understand is
try.
Shannon is not going to. Shannon, it is an accountability episode where we got to tell Stephen Carter that he's not as good as he thinks he is.
It's not true. That's not how that works.
Okay.
I actually have some good faith questions for Carter.
Yeah,
okay, well,
exactly.
They're going to have to wait.
Including
the therapy
faith,
session.
Zane, good faith.
Speaking of good faith, that's maybe the title of the episode, as well as because we took a talk about good faith bargaining. Stephen Carter, it has not been tabled yet. However, when we record, and I should tell everyone we are recording at 3:50 p.m. on Monday, the 27th of October 2025. But Bill 2 in Alberta, I was going to go across the board. I was going to go Doug Ford ads, Ronald Reagan. We were going to go but this has just happened. So we have to talk about it. Bill 2, legislation is supposedly embargoed until tabled, but if accurate, Danielle Smith is invoking the notwithstanding clause to force teachers back to work. Shannon, Phillips, can you help us understand what this is? And then I want to spend the time with the both of you to understand the scope and scale of what this is from a political perspective. And then I want to talk about the path forward here as we digest this news and understand it today on Monday, the 27th of October here in Alberta.
Okay, well, basically the government has to invoke the notwithstanding clause in order to pass this legislation of get these people back to work because it is unconstitutional. It is an unlawful piece of legislation and the government knows it. So you have the right within the Constitution that we passed in 1982 or patriated, I guess, that provincial legislatures or the federal government do have the right to override certain sections of the Charter. And those sections are our fundamental freedoms, our legal rights, and our equality rights. So they have the right to override those. And the idea being in the original of the, when the Constitution came in, that was kind of the way that they got the deal to get 9 out of 10 provinces to agree to the Charter. It kind of froze out Quebec, pissed off Leveque, but at the end of the day, that's how the deal got done in 1980. So we have this, and it's sort of an escape hatch for any kind of conflicts between rights that might, or between legislatures or between legislature and parliament that might arise. It's supposed to be used extremely judiciously. And in this case, I don't think that you could argue that it is because it's just cutting off collective bargaining. The reason why we know it's unconstitutional is because there's been a couple of different Supreme Court decisions upholding the right to strike as part of your right to collective bargaining. Your right to collective bargaining is captured under one of your fundamental freedoms, which is the right to free association. We are allowed to freely associate to have this podcast. We can question whether the courts should uphold that, but it's true. We can talk to each other. People can talk to Carter even. It's a charter protected right. But we can also band together and bargain collectively in our workplaces. And the courts have said that you don't really have that right unless you have the right to withdraw labor. right? It's kind of a fake right unless you have the right to take it to its logical end, which is, we're not coming back to work until we have a better negotiated process for this collective agreement. So those are the decisions that we live under as a country, and there is one way to override them, and that's with use of the notwithstanding clause. And so that's what they've done. First time in Canadian history. Doug Ford threatened to do it with educational assistance a couple of years back, and then ultimately backed down due to public pressure. The idea is that we don't override those sections of the Constitution because there'll be so much public pressure and so much scrutiny. Hard to have scrutiny when you're rattling through the bill in one day.
Yeah.
Carter, help me understand this, if you can. Is there a way to send teachers back to work without issuing or without invoking, I guess is the term, the preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause? I know that's a lot of words, but is there a way that the government could have done this without the clause?
I'm so glad you asked me that, Zain, because Shannon explained it to me just before the podcast.
Perfect.
And now I'm able to jump right in like I am.
She's filled your vessel, and I now want you to empty it on this show. Thank you.
Bottom line, and Shannon will correct me when I'm wrong, because ultimately they needed the notwithstanding clause. If they don't put the notwithstanding clause in, then they go run afoul of the courts, which have ruled on very similar type of ideas in British Columbia. Am I correct in that, Shannon?
That's right.
So I throw back to you, but ultimately they have to go the route of the notwithstanding clause. They have to remove fundamental rights that are yours and mine that will not apply to teachers starting as soon as this act is passed. And I don't think that people really understand. I think that when you think of back to work legislation, you think, well, the government can order someone back and that's fine. But if you're having to invoke the notwithstanding clause, then people start to wonder, okay, well, what is it that we're giving up? And I think that that's what ultimately the public relations of this is going to be much different than the legal side. And I'm going to stay away from the legal side too much and throw to our resident pretend lawyer. It's nice that we replaced Corey, our pretend lawyer.
Oh my God! Imagine
with
him
Shannon,
as our pretend lawyer.
This is a step. This is 2 steps in the wrong direction, and I'm really excited about it.
Corey would have still been on spelling out the notwithstanding clause for us, talking about how somehow he was involved tangentially when it first, he may have been in the womb or a very young child, but he was probably going to tell us about how.
I remember when it came out in episode 42 of the podcast, and he wasn't even born yet. But
Roy Romano
was
part of the crafting of the notwithstanding clause, and I'm probably the only person on this podcast who has a picture with Roy Romano, so I'm going to claim the degrees of separation on this one.
Sure. Well, we're going to give it to you. That is one you can take.
Well, I mean, you have a picture with Roy Romano you're allowed to talk about.
I need help. It's true. Jesus Christ. What do you want to say, Carter?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nope. Just saying.
I was giving you space and time.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Next
I'm not
question.
afraid of silence. I'm not afraid of it. I'll let you fill the gaps however you wish, Carter. Okay, you're good?
Oh, yeah, I'm good. Let's move on.
Okay. Shannon, question for you. Help me calibrate. I'm trying to understand how to calibrate in terms of how significant this is. I'm hearing unprecedented. I'm hearing significant. And I also want to tease the fact that there is a leaked memo that was provided to the broader media and political ecosystem a few months ago in regards to Danielle Smith using the notwithstanding clause on the trans legislation, the 3 trans bills. So this is not that, to be clear. That is still coming this session. So there's a chance that the notwithstanding clause makes a 2-time appearance in the next, week?
Yep.
Help me calibrate. I kind of have the answer internally, but help me give words to how I should be feeling about this in terms of the unprecedented nature of what we might be seeing here.
Oh, this is a 5-alarm fire.
Yeah, I mean, but the more you use something, the less people are going to be worried about it, right? It becomes normalized. And I would expect to see notwithstanding. I mean, I was joking with Haxon before you guys came because you guys are so tardy, that, why wouldn't you just throw it into every piece of legislation at this point, right? Because the Alberta government is suffering exactly 0 consequence from doing the notwithstanding clause. Every other government.
Are you sure? I mean, it's happened seconds ago, but I'm like, what makes you so confident that that's the path we're going here? Zero sort of accountability or zero sort of political blowback here. We're getting into the politics of it, so talk to me about it, Carter.
We had zero blowback on the trans issues. I don't anticipate that we're going to see any blowback on the teacher issues because, at the end of the day, and Danielle Smith is not wrong about this. This is what is extremely frustrating. At the end of the day, Alberta parents do want their kids back in school. What are they prepared to put up with in order to get their kids back at school? Are they prepared to put up with the notwithstanding clause? Well, they were willing to put up with the anti-trans stuff. Are they prepared to put up with this notwithstanding clause being forced upon teachers? And I think that because it's not them, and because it benefits them, they're going to say, fine, it's fine. As long as my kid gets to go back to school, I don't care what the tools were that enabled that. That's
Shannon,
what my expectation is.
Do you agree with this? I mean, we've seen recent polling, and of course we know polling can fluctuate, and that public opinion is squarely on the side of the teachers here. Now, time is, there's a erosion as it relates to people's patience, especially parents, as it relates to having their kids back in school. So I take Carter's point. I don't take it to the extent that he delivers it, which is that this will actually equate zero consequences for the government. But what's your take here?
There's a question of politics here. And
Yep.
it's not just a question of politics coming from the opposition, although they're doing everything they can. It is also a question for broader civil society and the broader labor movement. And it really depends on what the response is and how swift it is, how decisive it is, how it stretches across the economy, and how it reaches into people's lives, to Carter's point. And we have yet to see that. But we won't see it until, they're moving through the stages of the bill, which is happening as we speak. And once it passes, I think we will see the labor movement take some significant steps. But it's a question of how actors use their power in the system. Power sloshes around a system. And it's not fixed at any one time. So,
Yeah,
Carter?
so she agrees with me.
Well, I agree with both of you in the sense that I think the action is seismic.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that word. And it potentially is doubly seismic, although, Carter, you make an interesting point around the political sort of absorption of it being potentially less the more it's used. But unprecedented seismic. Okay, that has just happened, if not is happening while we are recording right now. As I mentioned earlier, these are leaked reports of the notwithstanding clause being invoked. You guys may know better than I, but Bill 2 has not been tabled just yet. However, we're assuming that is being fact. I agree with Shannon as well that I think this is now about the response. Whether you were expecting it today or not, whether you thought this was going to be done slightly differently, whether this happens again next week on the trans rights stuff, let's talk about the most strategic, optimal response, Carter. And I do want to include the groups that Shannon has mentioned. Let's talk about the New Democrats. Let's talk about labor. And then let's give the third bucket to civil society, which I think can include the broader populace. Nonprofit groups, those that are tangentially related, unrelated to this, just people who are active, mobile, partisan, nonpartisan. I'll put that in the third civil society bucket. Shannon, I'm not sure that's how you would define them.
That's how I would too. Yep.
Okay. Let's start with the New Democrats, Carter. And let's start with what they need to do as it relates to in the legislature and then outside of the legislature, because they'll have a process here, I imagine, and both of you can tag team on this. I imagine, it won't be a successful process, but they'll have things that they do. What do they need to do inside the legislature here? And what do they need to do outside? And then let's go to union/labor, and then let's go to civil society.
Well, I mean, ultimately inside the legislature, they need to raise their voices and fail, because ultimately they will fail in the legislature. So failing isn't necessarily bad. Failing is part of this. But when you fail, you must be able to point your finger at someone else and say that it's their fault. Right? I failed, but it's ultimately Danielle Smith's fault. This is bad. This is going to hurt people. This is a bad direction to go in. So that's what I'm anticipating from from inside. What I don't want them to do is to think that the whole world lives inside the legislature. I don't want them to start thinking the solution to this is filibustering the rest of the legislation, or to try and hold things up or make it more difficult for the government to do other things.
Can I interrupt you there?
Yeah,
They won't be able to. But
well, I'm not talking about just this piece of legislation.
no, I know.
But they can, if they think that the legislature is the place to do this, it's a mistake. They need to get their asses out of the legislature and into people's living rooms and into into places where they can talk to people. What I have learned, one of the things I have learned on this campaign that we're just done, is that no one is paying attention to anything. There is no news anymore. There's no social media anymore. There is only social networks, and those social networks are concerned about so many things that if they don't start to talk about this massively in a hurry, they're not going to catch a wave. People will not.
Well, the good news is that this is national news, and for good reason.
No one's watching the news. The news.
Every
no one's watching.
Every once in a while, stories break through, and this is one of those situations for the opposition. So, I mean, what they need to be doing right now, like literally right now, as we record this and the legislation is being introduced, is use every single opportunity they have for the leader to stand and look like a fighter. Every single one, even if he is, reading out an emergency motion, moving an emergency motion in order to slow down the gears. Get that clipped, get it pushed out. He had a really great first question period.
I thought so too.
Really good. So clipped out. And I know they're doing that, but like today needs to be something of a war room style approach to every single time the leader stands up that he looks like a fighter. And to Carter's point, it doesn't. Everybody knows that the fix is in, and the point is the fight. Primary audience, obviously, being teachers and people who are directly affected by this, but just all Albertans. This is an opportunity for him to introduce himself. Now, secondly, what the New Democrats obviously need to do is use every moment that they have within time allocation, although the bad guys will, to again, make sure that the leader is up, right? Because when he gets to speak to a bill, it's for longer than the others. So get him up as many times as you can so that you get as much good content as you have of him standing in the legislature with people sitting around him nodding and pushing that content out over the course of this evening. Because that will serve you in traditional media coverage. It'll serve you like in this 24 hours, right? And like then you move after they ram it through. But right now you have great examples of the leader saying smart things that most people agree with, that we know that most public opinion agrees with. So use every single, you don't get these opportunities of people speaking directly to camera uninterrupted, and being able to splice together 2.5, 3 minutes. You don't get that all the time. This is a good opportunity for that and for lots of different pieces of content.
Carter, do you disagree? Because you said don't filibuster, don't delay this thing. If Shannon's saying fight, I'm gonna sign a word to you. You're saying fold and get out of the legislature?
Get out of the legislature. You're gonna lose. Lose fast. Would be my recommendation.
The government's already doing that for you. You're only getting an hour per stage, right? So you're going to be done by 9:00 tonight. So, but at every stage, you need to think about every stage of debate, every hour or between,
but Carter's
4 p.m.
suggesting we even truncate that. You're suggesting truncate that.
Well, I'm not saying truncate it. Just lose fast, and then when you're done, but don't think that the world rests on the feedback that you're going to get in the legislature. People don't want to see. People don't want to see Naheed Nenshi standing up strong in the legislature. People want to see Naheed Nenshi in their communities standing up for teachers.
But to be clear, though, you mean exclusively not in the legislature, not in. I want to make sure I honestly interpret what you're saying.
I just want everybody to be. I feel like the NDP have fallen into the trap all too often of saying that everything exists in the legislature. If something happens in the legislature, then people pay attention to it. And I would argue that just because it happens in the legislature does not mean that people are paying attention to it. This is not going to be a legislature-focused exercise. It is going to be a focused exercise with people learning about it from their social networks. Where, I want people when they go back to school on Tuesday, on Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it is, when they're gathered in the parking in the playground to pick up their kids, I want them saying how shitty it is that this has happened, not how lucky they are that the government put them, has put these kids back to school.
That's your goal. That's the sort of key messaging that you want
Right.
proliferated on the streets. I've got a question for each of you, and then you can dabble in each other's questions. But for you, Shannon, is there a way for the NDP to extend this beyond, as we estimate, 9 p.m. tonight? Is there an equivalent of an American-style filibuster, speeches all night? Do any of those mechanisms exist? As our resident former MLA, what do you know of, and how do you interpret this?
No, they can't, because what they did is they put on the order paper that the government, whenever they want, can limit debate at every stage to 1 hour. So that too is fairly unprecedented, although nobody has taken to the streets, to Carter's point, in righteous indignation about government's use of time allocation and bill debate. But this government's has gotten awfully used to it. It never used to really happen. Klein, I think, used it on Bill 11 and a couple of other bills back in the day. And it was not something that was generally done. Starting with after the first session for Kenney, they started using it all the time because they didn't understand the rules as well as we did. And in their first session, they had to sit through us giving long. We made them sit for 30 hours or something around Bill Haight. That was the GSA thing, and taking away of I made that up, so I just put it.
That's really nice. Really good.
And taking away people's right to banked overtime, and the kids' minimum wage, the under 18 minimum wage. So we've forced them to eat shit on that for a day and a half. They didn't like it, so now they just bring in time allocation all the time. So no, those it turns out it matters who you elect, and they can use their majority for all kinds of ridiculous, undemocratic purposes.
So to be clear, Naheed Nenshi will have clippable moments tonight. But he will not have an extended overnight sort of thing, as we have seen in other cases, or as we've seen late night sort of. This will not be one of those moments, at least from how we see the confines of this are protected. Carter, my question for you is that Naheed Nenshi was not in the legislature up until, well, today, when he is in the legislature. Is this one of those moments that when you look at it, would you have wanted Naheed Nenshi out of the legislature today, given your strategy? Your particular strategy, which is about lose fast, would you have wanted him outside somewhere doing something else? Or is it actually the most advantageous thing that Naheed Nenshi is indeed on day one in the legislature, day one for him, I should say, in the legislature today as the official leader of the opposition?
When he's outside the legislature talking about this, he needs to be in a position to say, I was there, I watched her do it, she did a bad thing. Right? She was
even bearing witness today is helpful for him to be in there.
Bearing witness. But keep in mind, this is not going to boil down to procedure, right? And this is my fear, right? And this may be where Shannon and I differ, maybe we're not. But bottom line, my fear is that people are, that we're going to try and make this a process problem. And people are instead going to say, my kids are back in school problem, right? Like my kids are in school, ergo it is good. And the NDP are fighting to keep my kids out of school. So I am not happy with that, right? The NDP need to be able to thread the needle where they're able to say that the process and the notwithstanding clause are trampling on Albertans' human rights. But at the same time, we want kids back in school, but we want kids back in school under the right circumstances. And this is the wrong circumstances. You just have to be very careful, because I think that a large majority of people, while they do support the teachers, will support having their kids back in school more.
Shannon, let's talk about the NDP outside strategy. Carter's talked about it, network effect, get out into networks. He's actually even he's planted a flag on a goal that whenever they're back Wednesday, Thursday, that it should be about, look what that fucking government did, not I'm so glad my kids are back. Okay, I want to get your comment on that. I also want to get your comment on, does the NDP's focus here stick solidly 100, let's just give it ratio, 100% in the teacher's bucket? Or do they devote any of that energy, resource, time allocation to the notwithstanding clause overreach of rights bucket, which is much larger, much broader, might have different access points for people that might not be in the teacher camp, so to speak? So I'm kind of curious to get your take on both. Do you agree with Carter's sort of planting the flag of, in the next couple of days, it needs to be about, people in the parking lot blaming the government? And then are you deviating any resources to the notwithstanding unprecedented nature bucket of messaging?
No, the media, on the latter question, the media will do that for you. They will go around saying unprecedented a million different times. You don't need to. You need to focus on what are the kids going back to? They're going back to the status quo. And the status quo sucked. And the status quo is the reason why parents were on the teacher's side to use an overbroad word, unprecedented way in Albertans taking a pro-labor sort of public opinion orientation. So I think you don't need to be explaining the Constitution. It's boring. Carter told me that, and he's right. When I explained it to him. There's no question that people don't like the classroom composition, the class sizes, all of those things. Parents are keenly aware of them. So continuing to talk about that. And, the government took steps so they would never have to be accountable for that. They would never have to fix it. And none of that's going to change unless you boot these guys out. That's got to be the way that this is communicated. As for the NDP, I mean, obviously they have this session and in fact this couple of days to be looking like they're fighting the UCP in there. And that is fine. That is their job. That's what we pay them for, is to sit in the big green chairs on the green carpet and stand up, sit down at the appropriate time and cast votes. That's what they got elected to do. So that's what they will do. There are opportunities, is all I'm saying, to effectively communicate to the public that you are a fighter. I give you Pierre Poilievre. If you doubt me, it's not an ideological thing. He used the House to great effect. You can use the House, right? People who run around saying, no, the House doesn't matter. The House doesn't matter. It does matter, or it can. So I don't think I hear a lot of political practitioners often say that stuff. And I just go like, okay, yeah, Pierre Poilievre totally sucked. And he absolutely did not, essentially run himself into a 20-point lead until he wasn't. But he used the House for a lot of that.
But he also used videos for a lot of that.
Well, that's
he
the
also
thing.
used the ability to communicate outside the House.
100%. He used it all. He did it all in every opportunity.
So this is interesting. I agree with both of you. I'm kind of merged these points. How did the NDP showcase undeniable dedication, enthusiasm, work ethic on this file outside of the House? It's done tonight at 9. And I'm speaking both strategically and tactically here, so go wherever you'd like. But how do they show that level of dedication that turns oppositions into governments, or gives oppositions like this one a chance to be government? Because there's obviously a political basis here in terms of their reality. Carter, any ideas that you may have in terms of how they showcase that dedication? And we've seen things in the past. Let me throw things out, right? In the United States, they've done live streams of the Democratic sort of establishment, staying up all night and in doing midnight sort of things. I think the NDP's even done versions of that here. But I'm kind of trying to get into how do they tap into that level of dedication, enthusiasm, commitment, like we are the ones leading this parade sort of thing.
Well, the number one thing is to make sure that there is no competing communications issues. This is one of the things that we've taken the NDP to task for on a number of times. They have a singular point of contact. This is another thing that Pierre Poilievre does very, very well, is he has a singular singular vision, and he's going to go after that one point until that one talking point is done. And this talking point is the teacher strike. It has to be the single thing that they're talking about from now until such time as it's resolved in some sort of equitable fashion, or until such time as they've lost. And they could very well lose the battle here, but right now they're not losing the battle. General population thinks that this may be the wrong thing. They have to come out and show people why it's the wrong thing, and they have to have their singular talking point. This is what it's about. Every single MLA, I don't care if you're the critic for whatever, the critic for healthcare. I'm seeing headlines today about healthcare. Interesting. The healthcare system may shut down. Oh, that's fascinating. It's a later thing. It's not a now thing. The now thing is that we are focused on the teacher strike. We are focused on bringing that out. Singular focus.
Shannon, any final thoughts here? Because then I want to go to unions, and I want to split that in two. I want to talk about the union, ATA, and I want to talk about the union and labor movement. So any final thoughts on the NDP inside or outside strategy?
No, I think watching the caucus materials, they've all been doing exactly what they need to be doing. They've all been on message. They've been attending things. They've been talking to teachers. They've been highlighting their constituency work. They've been highlighting constituency teachers. That's their rock and roll duty. They've all been doing it. The only note I give is just give me more. Give me more different types of content. Let me see maybe some paid content. I think now is the time for that sort of thing.
Let's talk about the ATA. Can we start there? So any teacher that does take the labor action, including work to rule during the time, could be fined up to $500 a day, with the organizations facing $500,000 a day fines if they do so. Carter, can I start with you on this?
Sure.
Is the only choice here for the ATA to call their bluff, or do they have to send teachers back to work?
I think they have to send teachers back to work. I think that there's a consequence to not. There's other things that can be done, work to rule structure. There can be time in classroom. There can be all kinds of different things that they choose to do. They can slow things down. They don't have to approach the work day. I would imagine school sports are going to be off the table. I would imagine a number of clubs are going to be off the table. This is not going to be the scholastic experience that the children have come to expect.
To be clear, though, Carter, this says any labor actions, including work to rule, will be issued at $500,000.
Got to try that. That's going to be pretty tricky. Even defining what a work to rule looks like.
I agree.
Right. I think you got to take that type of thing. You can't continue the strike. The strike is $500,000 a day plus $500 per teacher or whatever the numbers are that they're creating, pulling out of their asses here, the provincial government.
Yes.
I don't think you can continue the strike as is. I do think that we can see the ATA call on their ideology, the other unions, which I know is coming in a separate question.
Yeah.
So I'll leave that for now, but I think you have to go back to work. I don't see any model whereby not going back to work is in the best interest of teachers.
Shannon, this is poor hosting on my part. Can you help? I should have gone to you first with helping us define work to rule. Can you help us understand what work to rule is in its broadest sense? I know Carter's talking about this application here. What is work to rule? And then the same question to you. Does the ATA call the bluff of the government, or do they have to encourage teachers to go back?
So word to rule in this context, essentially, well, in all contexts, it means only what's what's laid down in the collective agreement that you will do.
Right.
So the kids and I were talking about this, and they were rattling off all the things their teachers do. Would this be in? Would this be out? And my answer to them was, I don't know. I don't know, because I don't know what's in their collective agreement, right? Because the kids were like, oh, does that mean putting grades in Power School so that you can read them? Does it mean sending out the weekly, email and this quiz is coming up? I don't know. But those are examples of things in addition to any of the, lunchtime supervision, like some of those other
class
things.
Prep, all kinds of stuff. Right?
All kinds of stuff. Clubs, sports. But even before you get to clubs and sports, there's, just other things that teachers do, like sending me a weekly email that may or may not be happening anymore. Really, that do affect kids' learning experience. There's no question about it. There's a reason why teachers do these things, because they help kids learn.
And parental experience within the education system.
Yeah.
The parents are as much participants as the students in some regards, right? So parental experience is going to fundamentally change, in my opinion, at this stage. Whether that's work to rule or not, I'll let the courts decide. But if I was working with the ATA right now, I'd be saying we're going to be doing the relationship between teachers and parents is foundationally going to shift.
What do you think the ATA should do, Shannon? Should they encourage teachers to go back, or call the bluff, stay home, don't go back? We're all out.
How much money you got?
Yeah.
I mean,
this is where actually, the ATA financials might be worthy of digging into. And so I'm saying only quasi-facetiously, because we've talked about Shannon, you and I, about their advertising and that pipeline and what this money is for. In some cases, there is money, there is millions in the bank. So I'm going to just throw that out there from what we understand and what we know.
Not so much money that the teachers got strike pay.
It's true. Not so much money that the teachers got strike pay. But the question is, what is their move here? We talk, this whole sort of frame is response. Going back is the move that's been mandated to you. But at the same time, do they also have to, and I kind of adding a secondary question on you, Shannon, if they give in, is it kind of over for every other union here in some ways, which is kind of leads into the bleeding question of the other unions. So in some ways, their decision is not just for them. It's obviously for their kids and for their students, but it's also for the movement in some ways. Are they wearing that burden, or can they take that off their shoulders and say, we're looking after ourselves here? How do you think about this if you're in the movement right now?
It certainly is, and it's not just for Alberta. Doug Ford backed down, and now folks are saying, oh, you can just do this. Well, that will open up a whole permission structure for labor relations in every province in the country that feels inconvenienced about bargaining. So there's that, for sure. I mean, but talk about rock in a hard place. We're talking millions and millions of dollars a day and potential jail time. Now, is there money? Probably. They've got a building, so they've got money.
Some, yeah.
They've always been a well-resourced organization, but wasting tens of millions of dollars on fines just to make a point, that's a pretty tough one. When there might be other options for them, they can litigate on what is work to rule and what's not, and make things pretty uncomfortable. They can work with other unions. They can, they do have some ability to, mobilize and make the shoes pinch for the government. But those are fairly far off now. So the choices are not great choices. And it's designed, when government interferes in free and fair collective bargaining, to redound to the benefit of the employer. That is why we don't allow it. Because in order to have workers on the same, anywhere near the same playing field as employers, you have to make sure that there's not somebody behind the employer with a hammer.
Carter, broader labor movement. The term general strike has been thrown around.
Yeah, it's not going to be a general strike. It's going to be...
Explain to me what a general strike is in this case. I don't know if we necessarily need to go further beyond than suggesting that this would be all public sector folks taking on strike
the idea is that everybody who has a contract with the provincial government would be walking out in solidarity. I don't believe that would generate positive outcome for the unions. I think that it would be deemed illegal relatively quickly. It might work for a day, but it's not going to work for a week. The problem that Shannon has described with the hammers on one side and not on the other, that certainly is, I think, part of the problem in this particular case.
Could there be a outcome, Carter, where it's not just money that's being wasted, but on the back end, when you have other unions in potential strike position, if you get it together and you all wage public campaigns, that you come out of this better? Well, not just trying to you come out of this actually better.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This was kind of, I think people were thinking that the nurses and the teachers could be facing the same labor action at the same time.
Right. And I think one other one, I think paramedics may have been thrown into there, but don't quote me on that. I'm just going to
go with nurses and teachers because those are the two that I can recall off the top of my head. And when the nurses signed, I think that it was a big victory for the government. Because imagine a situation where the nurses and the teachers were on strike simultaneously.
Yeah.
Your healthcare and education systems are shut down. Now, in a wildcat general strike, this could be, could be catastrophic for the government. I just don't see how that happens in this province. I think what we would see is smaller actions that happen from time to time. And those smaller actions happening from time to time will be noticeable, but not so broad that the government and labor relations boards needs to bring down significant hammers.
Shannon, the small actions that Carter mentioned seem logical. They seem like they're incremental steps. Are we out of the era of small incremental steps? And I don't mean to insult Carter's strategy here, but in some ways, there is a case that one could make that if the teachers go back, that we enter a very dark period of what bargaining rights means in Alberta. Period.
In Canada.
And you extended the frame, and I apologize. I agree with you. to the entire country. So we look back then, 5 years later, 10 years later, and we're like, fuck, I wish we hadn't done those incremental things. That those incremental things didn't actually stand up to anything, that it didn't create the shock in the system that we needed to. And I am disagreeing with Carter's sort of approach here, but I'm not trying to push it on you. But I am trying to get your sense of it, in the sense of a general strike. Your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, if you think that it's going to cost millions and millions of dollars and invoke potential jail time for the ATA with a bunch of affected members and the majority of their membership behind them, and you still think that's too difficult, try it on a bunch of members who have just gotten a collective agreement or are in active bargaining, that is to say the HSAA, because UNA settled, but HSAA is still in bargaining.
Thanks for the info. Yep.
So, like they're not going to be doing that. And so they're just not. And even AUPE that has new leadership as of last week. I don't think they're going to be, that the new president of AUPE is going to be starting off her tenure with facing millions of dollars of fines and going to jail. It just is. And they have, at least with the public sector side in AUPE, they have an agreement in place. So, I mean, talk of general strike feels like it's, to me, it's felt like it's been thrown around a little bit without understanding what bargaining is and what unions are there to do and how the labor code works. There may be some province-wide actions taken, maybe even that might incur fines for some of the unions. That may happen. But is it going to be long and sustained? The penalties for doing so are severe. And the reason for those penalties is that we are supposed, the trade-off for workers is they're supposed to have bargaining in good faith on the other side. Again, with balancing the teeter-totter in labor relations. And so I don't hold out a huge amount of hope. I think they're going to have to do public mobilization.
Carter,
that leaves us with public mobilization.
Yeah. What does public mobilization need to look like? I had the opportunity to see that 30,000 teachers all wearing red outside of the Day of the Throne speech, which was a sight to behold. Carter, are you saying more of that? Are you saying bigger than that? Are you saying more diverse than that? What does public mobilization in this moment, with these potential downstream impacts, not just to the labor movement, but we haven't talked much about the notwithstanding clause and what it means to rights overall, let alone what it'll mean to trans rights in a number of days, with it potentially being invoked again.
Yeah.
What does public mobilization need to look like here? What does allyship need to look like here?
I don't think it can just be we protest in front of the legislature, we go to this, we go to McDougall. Yep. I don't think it can just be that. I think it needs to be, 50 teachers standing outside the elementary school at pickup and drop-off times, talking to parents. I think it needs to be one-to-one communications where the individual teachers are given talking points that they are going to be delivering to the general population. Yes, we are back to work. No, we are not happy. The conditions here are not satisfactory for your child. That has to be expressed directly to the parent so that the parent understands it, so that they're not just talking about how great it is that their kids are back to school on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever day. I think that's what, when we're talking about public mobilization, we are actually talking about parental mobilization. Don't worry too much about the public. The public will follow the parents. The parents are the most influential generation, right? Because they move up, down, sideways. Shannon's far more influential than I am because she's got kids and social networks in school, right? And that social network that revolves around school is probably one of the strongest social networks that exists. And the teachers need to activate it. What I would say, the very first thing we're going to do is that no one goes into the school until such time as the first buzzer rings, and they're standing out talking to parents as they're doing drop-offs and pickups. That would be the first thing I would say. That's our first mobilization. And we do the exact same thing. The last buzzer of the day goes, teachers walk with the students and they go straight outside and they wait for the parents to arrive for pickup and drop-off. Because all too often, elementary schools, how many people stand around the park having a conversation when they're picking up their kids
Absolutely.
And it is the most powerful social network that exists, and there's never any teachers there. The teachers don't go there because the teachers are wrapping up their day. If you put 3 teachers in that conversation, foundationally changes the outcome of this mobilization, to use your word, Zain, that needs to occur. So that would be my talking point. And if teachers don't want to do it, then they're missing out on their only real chance to change the outcome of this. Because my great fear is if you don't talk to the parents, if you're not mobilizing the parents, you're going to get steamrolled by, thank God my kid's back in school.
Shannon, have your say in here. What does mobilization need to look like? And we're now venturing into the civil society conversation too, right? So we talked about in the sense of the broader public here, because I think that's where mobilization comes in, unless you two have a different approach for the civil society aspect of, or supplemental approach, and we can definitely talk about that. But your take on what mobilization needs to look, and arguably more importantly, feel like over the course of the next number of days and weeks as a response to this invocation.
I think from the NDP, the broader labor movement, the teachers, everybody involved, it needs to be out in the space of communicating. Everybody needs to be doing paid. I want to see so much paid that I'm starting to get sick of it. Like I want to see at a level of saturation like the government tried to do when they wanted to take away our CPP, right? On every available channel. We know that costs them, I don't know, $7 million or so. Between all of those organizations, there is an ability to absolutely saturate the province in every corner. And I would like to see that happen. What Carter has described is a peer-to-peer, sort of communication strategy that is brilliant and should absolutely happen. You know where it should happen the most, and the teachers that should be the most supported to do it are in the Edmonton Donut ridings and in 5 or 6 ridings in Calgary. And parents there should be then mobilized and pushed by teachers and pushed by, push themselves, whatever, but there should be specific focus on those seats. And I think we all know why, because that's the path to power for the New Democrats.
Yeah.
And those are the seats where you're most likely to get UCP MLAs who are actually have any clue what time it is.
The question I have regarding parents, I'm curious if parents play a very distinct role. Carter was talking about the role teachers play to parents. If parents want to, let's say, make a protest mark of their own, withholding their child from school, something like that. I'm just trying thinking out loud here, right? Just as we try to absorb it. What unique role can parents play here? Both symbolically, but also like strategically, in a sense. Can they band together? Is there an avenue for them? Because I'm wondering if they have not necessarily been organized in that same way as obviously the political party or a labor movement have. Either of you want to take a shot at parents and their unique sort of role in organizing them into structures, Carter, from a campaign perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the only thing to do would be to focus on calling your MLA. I mean, I don't think it's reasonable to ask parents to keep their kids home. I don't think it's reasonable to say we're going to educate the kids at home. I don't think it's reasonable. I think that the reasonable elements of I will support you when band is canceled. I think they're prepared to do that. I think that parents are prepared to pick up their kids a little bit earlier instead of having volleyball practice. But I'm not sure that parents want to participate in anything larger than that because ultimately the schooling is required. This is why I'm so fearful. Because parents very easily can fall into the thank God we're back camp. That's why we need to see that one-to-one communication.
Now,
and I think that the drive should be pick up the phone and call the MLAs because the MLAs are ridiculously sensitive to this kind of shit. And they don't get 150 phone calls a day. If they got 150 phone calls a day, they'd shit their pants. So start doing that. Start giving them a reason to shit their pants. And, I take a small difference with Shannon. I appreciate the donut. I appreciate the 5 or 6 ridings in Calgary, but I think this can have just as much impact in rural Alberta as it has in urban Calgary and suburban Edmonton. I think that this can have tremendous impact on MLAs that have never fucking had any impact before. They just generally don't have to sweat any decision that this government is making. If we have to put so much pressure on this government that it is inconvenient to the extreme to be doing this type of action. Right now, it is just not.
I want to kind of close off talking about 2 groups. Well, actually, one is not even a group. One's the country, and I'll talk about that second. But I want to talk about a group that will probably get, unfortunately, Carter, overlooked, but will still be married to the notwithstanding clause, which is the trans rights organizations. And I'll, I'm helping Skipping Stone, a Calgary-based trans rights group, or assisting individuals with programs and services and advocacy. But Carter, how does the allyship work here? This is a notwithstanding clause that is unprecedented, that admits that what we are suggesting would not stand up to the courts, potentially being used back to back. All focus of the NDP, as you guys have both discussed, should be on the teachers. What happens to trans kids here? How do they get protected in this broader sort of fight that we're having? And I want to talk to you both about messaging before I leave as well. But Carter, your take on this small group for sure, but vulnerable and often overlooked, and seems to be the case yet again with our political dynamics in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a ton of empathy and challenges. I mean, a small group like the trans children and trans community in general has been easy to target with the notwithstanding, because ultimately, they didn't come after me, right? The old adage, it wasn't me, I wasn't impacted.
Yes, and also, just to add on top of that, a group that other minority groups are okay picking on, a broader divide and conquer strategy. And I speak of my broader Muslim community, in which the transphobia is at extremely high levels, but frankly, it's a divide and conquer strategy to have one minority group pick on another so that you can go back and forth, and the main sort of instigator of this, in this case, the government, can kind of do their thing. So I want to just frankly acknowledge that brutal political reality as well.
The best case scenario for the trans organizations is that the notwithstanding clause return to its place of this is a bad thing to do.
Yes.
If we can societally make the notwithstanding clause untenable,
toxic,
then great news for trans groups. My fear, and I retain this positioning, and I've repeated it, I think, 3 or 4 times. People are going to see the ends, and they're going to say that the means were justified, right? So the ends justify the means. It's going to be the outcome that the UCP is counting on, and then they'll be able to. Then the notwithstanding clause isn't this great big horrible piece of legislation, but hopefully I'm wrong.
Shannon, what do you think here for the notwithstanding clause 2.0 potentially coming later this week, early next week, being applied to trans groups, trans individuals?
I think that on this one, we already have, there's a reference case before the Supreme Court around what are the parameters of judicial review when a government uses the notwithstanding clause. That's happening in the context of Quebec's Bill 21. And to my mind, a lot of what, if Alberta does it, a lot of the pushback should come via the courts, because they are such a small a group of folks. I mean, you're going to get broader mobilizations during Pride and other moments where civil society comes together. But really, like with same-sex marriage 20 plus years ago, the victories came through the courts. Now, it's not just like on these 3 pieces of legislation. I think the one that is probably the most likely to have some variance is the one that gets between parents and kids and medical decisions, and has the state insert itself between parents and doctors, and essentially takes away the right of parents to choose certain avenues of medical treatment for their kids. That is certainly, I mean, obviously it impacts our fundamental freedoms, but it also affects parental responsibility. And that might be the one where there's enough wiggle room to find a way for the courts to be able to apply judicial review and reconsider this one. I do think that resources should be, obviously people should give generously to those legal pushbacks, because that's ultimately where the pushback will come. There's not a lot that can be done in the context of a legislature, once again, if this gets run through.
Carter, talk to me about messaging before I talk about the pressure that the rest of the country can provide to Alberta, if any. The message for the NDP is squarely focused on teachers. Both agreed. Message for the ATA has to be focused on teachers. Where does the union messaging, if I'm kind of using the pie being 100%, focus between teachers and the unprecedented nature of the notwithstanding clause? And then what does the broader sort of civil society sprinkling need to look like in terms of teachers versus unprecedented nature of something that fundamentally acknowledges that our rights are being taken away?
Oh boy, I'm not even sure I know, Zain. I mean,
or how do you think it will shape out? Even if you don't know, even if you're not like waving a magic wand and saying this is what Alberta needs to look like next week in terms of the response, how do you think it will shake out in a sense? Because I'm curious about this myself. The clause is hard to explain, but once you understand it, you understand how crazy its application in a case like this is. It's like as soon as people get it, like, what the fuck? And it's exactly, that's my interpretation. That's how I feel about it when you understand it. So I'm curious how you think, even if you don't get to wave the wand, Carter, how you think it shakes out between this being absolutely about teachers versus this being about something more than teachers.
You know what I think, honestly? Honest to God, I think that the government's going to win this. I think that at the end of the day, the unions and the civil society, the progressive side, isn't going to be able to put together an argument that defeats the ends justify the means. And the message that we're talking about in a week is going to be the ends justified the means. And that's going to be what parents glom onto. I don't care. My kid went back to school, and I think that we'll see the unions have a harder time explaining why the notwithstanding clause is bad than the government has a time explaining that getting kids back in school is good.
Shannon, what does the message need to look like, or what do you think it will look like broader than the NDP focused on teachers, the ATA focused on teachers?
The through line here is that you don't have any power because Danielle Smith took it away from you. You have a shitty education system that you want to speak out about as a parent. Nobody cares what you think because Danielle Smith will decide. You have a healthcare system that is busting apart at the seams, even though you think public that it is your number one political concern, as per every public opinion survey. Doesn't matter. She doesn't care what you think. You're not going to get what speaking up doesn't matter. Asking for your individual liberty doesn't matter in the case of use of notwithstanding clause for trans people. None of those things matter because Danielle Smith will decide, because she's decided to take up that power for herself, for her own ends, and to do her and to push forward with her priorities rather than yours. You don't matter to her. And I think ultimately it's a broader values question. And the things that you want to live in a good society are not going to be things that you get from this government. And ultimately, that's what got to be the through line for everybody. In the next week or so, I hope that I see all channels that kids are going back to overcrowded classrooms that are far too complex for anybody to get a good education.
You're shaking your head, Carter. You disagree with the strategy, or you disagree that that's going to be the reality?
I want to live in Shannon's world. Shannon's world sounds like it's a great place.
I'm trying to be as optimistic as I can. I'm usually the person who like pours cold water on leftist dreams, but here I am trying.
Let me end with this. Shannon, I'll start with you. Any value, or do you think any impact, maybe I'll put it that way, that external pressures outside of the four walls of our province could have on Alberta, whether that be teachers from across the country, whether that be other provincial governments, whether that be the feds, whether that be media, whether that be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You get the point. Mass protests elsewhere. Do you feel like any of that could have an impact here? Yes or no? Carter, final question to you right after Shannon.
Not really.
Carter?
No, I don't. I totally agree. I think that the problem is that Albertans feel like we're a unique species, and the rest of the country doesn't matter what they think, and fuck them if they think so. Except maybe Saskatchewan.
Carter, I'll end with one final follow-up for you. You are the one who admittedly, voluntarily said that you think the government's going to win this. What can they do? I'll give you a 1-week timeline to fuck this up for themselves in a week. If you feel like they are going to be the victors in these raw political terms that we often talk about on this show, then what can they do to themselves or to others to fuck up a victory on their part, Carter?
Allow anybody but the Premier to speak to this. Whereas when I talk about getting the entire NDP talking about the same talking points, I want everybody talking about it. When I'm talking about the UCP, the best communicator they have on their bench is Danielle Smith. If she's the one out there in the front talking about this, she will make parents believe that this is in their best interest.
We're gonna leave it there. What a truth bomb of an episode. As we just start rolling, the entire thing changes. And I'm sure we're going to revisit it. We're going to leave it there. That's a wrap on episode 1889 of The Strategist. My name is Zain Velji. With me, as always, Shannon, Phillips, Stephen Carter, and we shall see you next time. Okay, Carter, we got more information, so we're back.
We have to come back.
Yeah, we're back. We're back because we're
letting information change our discussion points.
You know what? This is
so off-brand.
This is off-brand because information should not. You're going to double down. This might be the rare time you don't double down. I'm actually curious to see what you say. Because this is a kind of unrelated information, but we've just learned that the premier is leaving for Dubai today. So today is Monday, October 27th. The bill is Bill 2, notwithstanding clause, invoked, teachers, back to work. Danielle Smith is getting on a plane and saying, fuck you to Alberta, going to another oil-rich destination, which we can talk about in its own course. But Carter, the reason I wanted to come back is this kind of interrupts the Stephen Carter model of things, doesn't it? In terms of what the last thing we talked about was the government was headed to a W.
The only thing that could fuck this up is if Danielle Smith's not here to message it, and she's not going to be here to message it. And the clown car that is the UCP caucus being left alone without adult supervision.
Oh my God,
to try
Danielle
and communicate
Smith's the adult
this.
In the situation, Carter. Really?
Listen, Danielle Smith is a spectacular communicator. We can find fault in what she communicates all day long, but she communicates things clearly and in ways that, her whole, I just take the number of students and divide by the number of teachers and, fuck you, Danielle. But that is the simplistic shit that people buy into. And without Danielle Smith around, I don't think that the rest of the caucus, the clown car that is her cabinet, is necessarily going to be able to carry this in the same way because they're not going to have the tools that Danielle Smith has.
Are you taking away the W from the government here? Is that what's going to...
I'm now saying it could end in a draw.
Oh, interesting. Shannon, you may have felt differently in terms like the inevitable government win that Carter has suggested, but is this a big deal that she's leaving on the heels of this?
Holy hell, is it ever? This is a massive deal. She is going to Saudi Arabia and the UAE to go
Saudi
live,
as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's going to go meet with a bunch of people who, invest in sovereign wealth funds. Probably the same people who gave Jared Kushner $2 billion for looking the other way on Khashoggi.
Khashoggi.
No, look, this is disgusting. That she can go hang out in the Sultan's palace. Meanwhile, the rest of us are stuck here with 40 kids in a classroom. It's ridiculous. And it's a beautiful opportity for, the exact message that I was talking about. You don't get good healthcare and education. Danielle Smith gets whatever she wants. And in this case, she gets to go hang out in the, with the glitziest, richest people in the world and talk about, oil company investments and all the rest of it. It is ridiculous. Her primary job is to be here managing a healthcare and education system, and she's not doing it. And there is no doubt in my mind that a good case for like Redford on steroids level scandal that could be made here.
Well, let me ask you this then, because this also goes back to another sort of theory, and I think this is both of your sort of models of response here for the NDP. Should they be paying any attention to her leaving? Because this then distracts from teachers, right? If the 100% of the pie is teachers, does any of it come back to Danielle Smith leaving and the Saudi and the UAE stuff, Carter? Or are you just laser focused on what's happening here? Or can you make this one and the
Smith
same?
Doesn't care about teachers so much that she fucked off to Dubai.
More to the point, she doesn't care about your kids so much that she fucked off to Dubai.
She fucked off to Saudi Arabia. She's taking a 2-week vacation in the desert, so that she doesn't have to deal with your kids. She's doing this on purpose because she doesn't want to be the one holding the notwithstanding fucking pile of shit. This is why she's going.
Notwithstanding, of course, is also the name of her one-woman play at the Riyadh Comedy Festival, which is part of the holdovers that she's going to master on. Yes, yeah, that's good. Do we have anything more to say here?
Zain.
Yeah, you're welcome. Do we have anything more to say here? Because this changes some things. It doesn't change others. I don't want to keep you guys too long. We'll revisit this.
No, it's practically
I think we
dinner time.
just recorded this segment so that you could have that Riyadh comedy.
Oh yeah,
festival
that's right.
line.
That's right. I didn't get anything good in. Yeah, you're welcome.
That's a
We're
good
good. We're wrapping again. Stephen Carter, Shannon Phillips. We will see you next time.